Hello, Namaskar, and Jai Hind, everybody. Today's vlog is going to be a little different than my usual chit chat around global geopolitics and things of that nature. Today, I'm going to talk about my philosophy of raising kids, which I implemented on my kids. My son is 25 in college, my daughter is 21 in college, doing fairly well. Pretty happy, pretty satisfied, strong opinionated, very independent, mind of their own, and pretty confident and no mommy issues, no daddy issues sort of kids. And I was talking to a very good, sort of my, now I can call him friend, but almost he's like my son. My kids grew up with him, looking at him as an older brother. The other day we were having drinks and we were just talking about, the risks that I took, the way I raised my kids. And so we were just talking about various philosophies of raising kids and life in general. But one of the things that stood out is that I've seen there are many kinds of parents. Everybody, parents in the style of who they are. Your parenting style is nothing else but it's an extension of your personality. If you are very strict, very regimented, very sort of, I can use the word tight ass, very to the T, by the bone, very bottom line centric personality. You will raise a kid in a certain way. You're going to be hammer and tong on top of your kid for every tiny detail. And you're not going to give them room to interpret things on their own at an early age. The kids have to do everything the way you tell them to do, otherwise you are going to be upset, you're going to be mad at them, you're going to risk and reward them like you do to your dogs. Like when you train them, you do it right, I give you a cookie. You don't do it well, I don't give you a cookie. And if you remember, there was a book that came out, Tiger Moms, written by a Chinese lady who her daughter went to Harvard, and she was like very big on it. And I think it's come from that Asian culture where you are very tight on kids for material success, and that's why you see a lot of Chinese kids in Harvard and MITs and top notch, and you see a lot of Indians also raising their kids in that fashion where they are very, very strict on their kids in terms of what do you need to do, when do you need to do, how do you need to do, and if you don't do it this way, you're not getting your Xbox this on your birthday, you can't go out with your friends in a curfew at 9, and so on and so forth. So it almost like a military regiment style that you raise your kid from a very early age. My style was exactly opposite of it. I was of the kind that you give all the freedom to your kids within a very loosely defined spiritual, physical, and moral guidelines. And one of my biggest guidelines was that, hey, you be nice to everyone. While what you do to your time, how you want to approach life, and I would have a lot of conversation around what is right and what's wrong in a broad spectrum, not very, either do it this way or highway. My style is more normative rather than prescriptive. And at an early age, it's very hard for kids to understand how the normative style works. So they go for a lot of independence, which to me was absolutely fine. Like my kids will have ice cream for breakfast if they wanted to, and I was no one to say you can't have it. I mean, it's his personal body. If the body is craving for sugar, they want to have sugar, so be it. Who am I to say no? And if my daughter wanted to have hot dog, 3 times a day, I was like, fine, go eat it. And in fact, I would prepare it and cut it and eat it. And that's what she did for quite a few years. When she was like 5, 6, 7 years old, she only wanted to eat hot dogs and yogurt. And yeah, they went to school. They were not like top of the class in school. But one thing I noticed with my kids, they were very, very happy when they were growing up. We had 3 dogs, 2 Goldens, and a lab. Max, Pongo, and Coco. And one of my core philosophy was that Anybody who lives under my house roofs have same equal rights and responsibilities based on their age and what their capabilities are. So I never said my dogs can't get on the sofa or can't sleep on the bed. If they were sleeping, you better let them sleep, and you find a space around them to sleep, because they have the same rights as you do. They're living under the same roof. So I was an extremely liberal, easygoing father. And for me, the most important thing in life, even today, is that if you are happy in the moment right now, you will be happy in the future as well. And if you are miserable right now to achieve some happiness in the future, chances are you are giving away too much of a precious commodity of today for uncertainty of tomorrow. Now, this is not to say that you don't want to inculcate some core skills in the kids, which I did by sort of enjoying with them. You know, my kids grew up playing sport. My son was a very decent sportsman. And I'll tell you a story of my son. I mean, he was a very good swimmer at a very early age. And he loved swimming. He was swimming like 6 years ahead of the peers. So when he was like 6 years old, he used to swim with 12-year-olds and still win the tournaments and stuff. But one fine day we were sitting and he said, "Papa, I'm done with swimming. I don't want to swim anymore." Now, if I was a tiger mom sort of a dad, or tiger dad, to use the word, then I would be all over him and by whooping his ass that you're so good, you can go to Olympics and blah, 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 and you push him for swimming. In my case, I just had a conversation. "Beta, aren't you having fun?" He says, "No." And like, "I'm so bored, water goes in my eyes and my ears." And he was truly done. I mean, you could tell that he didn't want to do competitive swimming, because he had to go to certain number of practices after school. He would get tired. So I was for me, I just couldn't see my son being discomfortable, and me, my father's expectation of making him, Michael Phelps, coming in the way. So I'm like, hell with it. If my son is not happy, so be it. Let him do what he wants to do. Then he got into soccer. He was okay. He not great soccer player, but he used to enjoy going to soccer because some of his best friends were there, Aaron and stuff. So that was fine. Then he found his rhythm in baseball, and he was very good baseball player. He really got into baseball. He liked it. And then one fine day he got into golf, and he loved golf. He played for his school team. He was a very good golfer. My whole point is that you want your boys and girls to get into sport, but let them play the sport that they want to play, and let them play it at the level that they want to play. Don't just shove everything. I mean, I have seen this with a lot of parents, that if their kid can kick a good ball, they suddenly think he's going to be Messi. I'm like, come on, guys, just let them have fun. You want to have them competitive spirit, so tell them that if you're playing, play to win. But don't be just, like walking in the park. But hey, if he loves to walk in the park on a field, let him do it. The key is to finding that balance between creating, teaching your kids how to be competitive, but also teaching them to have fun while being competitive. And the second thing I'm very big on, which I live my personal life as well with, that if you're not having fun at something, it's not worth it. Don't do it for compulsions unless and until there's a gun to your head. And you don't want to put gun to your head. But if you're a tiger mom or tiger dad, which I've seen a lot of them, they are constantly, their gun is out of the holster. I've seen people who walk around their house like they have a gun on they're gunslingers, like they have gun in their hand, and they're constantly in battle with these kids. Do this, do that, you didn't do this, you don't do that. And I'm not talking any about particular one, but after having read that book, Tiger Mom, and having that conversation with my friend, and then I've seen a lot of my friends and family, how like living under the household, it should be fun, it should be joy, it should be like, hey, do what you want to do, as long as you are not becoming a roadblock in somebody else's happiness. And the second part is that this discipline is a good thing, but you should know when to be disciplined. Like in batting, I was a pretty decent cricketer, and I've heard a lot of interviews with some great players. Like, they know when to switch on and when to switch off. And switching off time, more so than not, is so much more important than staying constantly switched on. If you're constantly switched on, you're going to burn yourself out. And I truly believe in the long run of life, you want to pace your innings of life. So just because kids are with you up to the age of 16 or 18, you don't want to sort of burn them down by the time they get out of the house. You want them to, sort of train them to enjoy this marathon of life. Life is not a constant sprint of 80 years. Nobody can sprint for 80 years. But you want to train your kids that they can, go fast when they have to for a short burst, and then they know how to, wind down and sort of take a step down and relax and rejuvenate and, sort of, refresh themselves and fuel up their emotional tank, their spiritual tank, and their physical tank. And this philosophy works that if you're a runner, you go running. After running, you would need time to wind down, to cool off, to let your muscles recover, your joints recover, and then you go for another run. You just can't be constantly running. And especially in America or even in India now, you wake up your kids at 6:37 because parents have to go to work after they drop them to school, or the bus will show up at 7. Now think about it, a 6, 7, 8-year-old or a 5, 6-year-old, and I used to feel the pain in my kids at times. You wake them up when they can't even open their eyes, because at that age they need longer sleep hours. So parents are shoving the kids in bed by 8, 9, which is fair. Let them sleep long, and I think if you manage their sleep cycle, they can sleep that way. In our household, Monday morning was always an issue because our kids had late night Sunday parties. They slept at 11, 12. Then we had to wake them up in the morning. But the idea was, for me, I didn't speak much about this philosophy, didn't say much to people, but I lived very instinctively that if I saw my kids are not having, that much fun waking up, I would let them sleep extra few hours. I'll drop them to school late. What the heck? If the teachers say, oh, late, so be it. If they blame it on parents, I was willing to take the blame. I told them, hey, they slept late, wasn't feeling good, so they showed up late. It's not like they are in a bloody PhD program or they have to fly a fighter jet at that age. A lot of teachers would make it a big deal. It's like, oh my God, this, that. I would tell them, hey, my kid's happiness and joy and just his overall satisfaction of life is equally important. Second part is, know that not every child is growing at the same pace spiritually, physically, and mentally. While the ecosystem that we have created in modern society is as if every child's body clock is same, emotional maturity is same, and spiritual maturity is same. It's not, right? So you, as a parent, you are the last line of defense from shielding the pressures of this world and the uniformity of this world, if you might want to call it, and the militarization of societies that is being imposed in modern day families of your kids. So you are the last line of defense. You are the only one who knows granularly what your likes and dislikes of your kid is, right? Some kids are going to be early sleepers, some are going to be late sleepers, some are going to have heavy breakfast guys, some are going to have heavy dinner people, some are going to snack 10 times a day, some are going to snack few times, some need more sugar, some need less. And as a parent, if you are not paying attention to those things, then you're not a good parent. You don't deserve to be parents. Then you better, I can go on a rant on what you should do with your kids, except killing. You can give them away or whatever, or don't have kids. But so that's another thing. Know your kids granularly and make sure that you're working with them towards their happiness, their joy. In the world, everybody will learn basic skills to survive and thrive and do well. They might not all become Bill Gates. They will not all become Usain Bolts. They'll not become Sachin Tendulkars. None of them will be Michael Jordan, because everybody is unique. All these great individuals are unique. What was most important for me is to see the joy in my kids' faces and eyes and just in that moment. So if my son wanted to have, he had PlayStation, Xbox, all the game things. Whenever he asked for anything, he wanted it, I gave it to him. I never said no, because for me it was more important that he doesn't waste his emotional quotient energy on sulking and thinking, oh, I wish I had that, I don't have it, because then he's just not having fun in the moment. So material life or cost of living in terms of material self, if I could afford, I'm not saying if he wanted a fighter jet, I would have gotten him fighter jets. I did buy him the model fighter jets, the small ones, but not the big ones. But whatever you can afford, and if they're asking for it, you let them have it. They'll grow out of it. They'll learn something by playing with it. We, on the one hand, we parents and the society says, let them get their hands dirty, let them, play, they will learn skills. On the other hand, we deny them things from which they learn. Now, so what happens is the ego of parents play up so much that they don't trust the kids. In my case, I trusted the kids. If my kids wanted a certain toy, that's the toy I bought them, not the toy I wanted to give them. Now, there are certain toys that you like, which you didn't get as a kid, then you buy those. But if your kid is not playing with them, don't get mad at them. You play with those toys because you bought them for your kids. Your kids didn't want it, your kid wanted something else. So buy the kids what they want, what they like, because I believe in universal force, God, creation, whatever. Whatever the universe force is telling you what to do, the same universal force is telling your kids what to ask for, what to do, what to enjoy, and what to live with. So let them have it. Don't become their enemy. Don't become like you are the general in their life. Become their collaborator in life. Become somebody who's having fun with them in their life. Like in my house, we used to play cricket inside the house. I have lived in some fairly decent small size homes and then in really big homes. But I played with my son Kabir and Aaron and his friends and everybody else. We used to play cricket inside the house with, of course, a rubber ball. Now, I wouldn't see there are many parents who would let their kids do that. And on top of it, we had 3 big dogs running along with 5-6 kids. But I love that sort of chaotic, happy, bubbly environment where kids feel they can get away with anything because it's their house as well. When I say with anything, I'm not saying that they'll take a knife and stab people, as I said earlier, within a certain norms. But they, in terms of running around, playing, jumping, playing cricket inside the house or throwing a ball or fetch for my dogs upstairs to downstairs, things like that, I was never, in fact, that's what I wanted to encourage kids to have, to feel when you come home, you have to be switched off. You can't be switched on at home. When you step out of the house, you have to switch on a little bit because now you're dealing with a lot of uncertainties of the office and market and student life and practical life and joys and sorrows of the universe. But the home is what I always felt is your sort of bubble where you go in and you can be yourself. And for me, it was very important that my kids always felt the same way at the house. I mean, if they threw the socks in some place and slept on the bed, for me, it was perfectly fine. Let them sleep on the bed. I would take up the socks or move them aside. I never got crazy mad at my kids to clean the room, my son's room was always a mess. It's still a mess. He goes in college and I'm sure his wife is going to curse me and my wife for not teaching our kids how to clean the room. For me, cleaning the room is no big crap. I want him to become so successful that he can hire people to clean his room, So I'm on that axis where you give absolute freedom, you trust the universe, and you trust their self-knowledge and instinct and wisdom that it will awaken in it, that they'll be able to make the right choices as they move along. And all along, yeah, they're going to fail in few areas, they're going to be miserable in same areas, but that's what life is. I want them to explore life at their own terms and conditions without too much, sort of artificially forced model of the world that I shove in their head when they were kids. They went to decent schools, they came out okay, they are doing really good in college, and now they're really coming on their own. So I've seen kids who sort of, have the best time of their lives in school, but when they go to college, they don't know what to do and they fail miserably. For me, it was always important that I was training the horse for the long course. It was not important that he wins 30,000 trophies by the time he's in 10th grade, but I want to have this joy and satisfaction of living a great life as he's moving along, whether he matures at 40, he peaks at 60, he peaks at 90, doesn't matter, but he should feel he's in control of his marathon race of life. And same is true with my daughter. So when I'm saying my son, but my son, with my son, we had a little bit more fun and powwows. With my daughter, she was never into sports. She was more into, her dolls. So I bought her every kind of a doll wherever I went through, and she had a huge collection of dolls. Guess what happened to those dolls? We had 2 dogs. One of the dogs, Sam, is an Australian Shepherd. Whenever we left them home, he got mad that we left him at home. He would grab all Aditi's dolls from her room upstairs, bring them down and pile them up on the carpet downstairs in front of the TV. That was his way to show the displeasure. And while doing all that, he chewed up quite a few of her dolls. So that was the story of my daughter's dolls. We still talk about it, laugh about it. But same was true with my daughter. My daughter grew up in a very free and open environment. She had her friends over, running around, having a great time. She was a lot more self-disciplined. She was a lot more aware, unlike my son, who was a little bit more of a cowboy and a bit more of a, Rasta sort of a kid. But both of them grew up in an environment of extreme freedom. And not one of my biggest thing was I didn't want to impose artificial discipline just for the sake of it. And I would always ask these questions: would I like my parents to be doing it to me? If the answer was no, then I didn't impose it on my kids. I grew up in that sort of an environment where our mother, father, and the family was, have fun, do well. In fact, my father never saw my grades. He would only ask, "How are you doing in school?" And I said, "Okay, good, do well." And he was very proud of us. Grew up playing sports. So same thing was with me. I was always playing sports with my son. Our dogs were always fetching balls in the backyard and running around. And so it was that sort of an environment. And that was my philosophy overall is, raising kids. Let them grow up into a happy being who are more self-assured, who are more self-confident. They don't have identity issues in their personality. They're more self-assured. They can believe that they can, figure things out on their own. And you're preparing them for the long marathon of life. Success and failure is not that they went to Harvard at 21. Success and failure is how happily they are living when they're 80. Now, it's not to say that they don't have to have skills for earning money, and that's where you have to have the conversation with them. That first thing, as parents, you have to know who you are. It's very important that you are self-assured, you're confident, you are sort of aggressive where you have to be, you are switched off where you have to be, you have great friends, you have great company, you love animals, you love plants, and if you are that way, you will raise the kids in your replica to a certain extent. And as an evolutionary path, your kids will try to do a little bit better than you. The second part is, once you know yourself, you invest time to understand your kids and their personalities, and just help them to kind of tap into their, personalities, and help them to pick the courses and classes and sports that sort of gives them joy and pleasure. Don't let them swim against the current in life. As Buddha said, swim with the flow. If you try to do too much against the flow, chances are you'll get exhausted and won't reach anywhere. And then, what to say about the tiger mom parenting? I mean, I always abhorred it. I always sort of never enjoyed it. Didn't even like the kids who are going through that phase. But what can you do? It's, every parent has their own, choices, and it's their right how they want to raise the kids. But I was a big critic of that book, Tiger Mom. I'm like, what stupid way of raising kids. Just because... So don't try to, an extension of this philosophy is you should never try to satisfy your ego, like what you couldn't accomplish, what you couldn't be, and you want to live that through your kids. Yes, you have to motivate them to do their best, but let them do their best in what they enjoy and how they want to do it. Some kids study late in the night, some study early in the morning. Some wants to do neuroscience, some wants to do physics, some wants to do chemistry, some wants to do international affairs. Let them do what they want to do. Because if they are enjoying what they're doing at their own pace, chances are they'll be happy, they'll be less emotionally and intellectually fractured, they'll be more cohesive and well-rounded personality, and they'll be a joy to be around. And that's the kind of, next generation you want to create. Outside of that, do's and don'ts for me, the biggest one was that you can't be mean to others, and you can't be, sort of negative, dark person. For me, it was important that you are joyful. They were allowed to get mad. They were allowed to, because I used to get mad. So you have to have all the emotions. You should be allowed to express all the emotions. But some emotions which are dark and not beneficial for the larger good of humanity or for family. You want them to, you want to talk to them through stories, however you can, to so that sort of they don't go into that route. Another part I thought was very important is to have a lot of unstructured, off the cuff conversations, as much as you want to have with your family and kids. Not every conversation has to have an agenda and an outcome and what is the message you got out of it. No, just shoot the breeze. And the more you shoot the breeze, talk about everything and anything under the blue sky. Yeah, you don't want to have boundaries. And if they are inquisitive, try to help them to understand the story behind it, whatever their question is, as well as you can. Read a lot with around them. So when the kids see you reading a lot, growing up with a lot of books, chances are they'll grow intellectually competitive or competent, I should say. Play a lot of sports, watch a lot of movies, eat all sorts of food, travel. If you can, do whatever you can in terms of your own financial constraints and whatnot. But my big philosophy was, don't be a tight ass, be a gentle, liberal, fun-loving father and mother. Otherwise, I've seen a lot of people, even at my age, who have daddy issues and mommy issues, They're constantly battling, oh, my parents didn't do this to me, and my father did this, my stepfather did this, my step-parent did this. And they can't get out of that emotional turmoil of the childhood. And those scars make their whole marathon race of life sort of pain. It's like, running a marathon with a toe injury, or running a marathon with a sort of hamstring that has been fractured, but you can't stop and you still have to run. Just imagine how painful the marathon race would be for you. So what you want to make sure that you're not creating any emotional, psychological baggage for your kids when you're raising them, and you're providing them everything where they feel free, they feel light as a bird so they can fly. What else? I mean, this is something that I thought I'll share with you all because Nathan asked me to, my friend. And whatever you get out of it, good for you. What you don't get out of it, nothing wrong with it. I'm just sharing my experience. I'm sure my kids will watch it one day, and my family and friends, and I can't wait to get your comments on it. The worst thing you can do is either be like me or be a tiger mom. But the kids who are raised in between, neither here nor there, you're just creating average Joes. There is a risk in either of these extremities, right? But don't blame yourself, because there are no guarantees that adopting one way or the other of parenting will create a better outcome. My whole philosophy of life has not been outcome-centric. My philosophy of life has always been journey-centric. So if you believe in journey-centric life, then this is a great approach. If you believe in outcome-centric lives, then be a tiger mom. But what are the guarantees that you will end up creating a great tiger, right? And if you end up creating a great tiger and that tiger has tons of emotional baggage and has mommy issues and daddy issues and sibling issues, no matter how powerful the tiger is, he'll be just a lousy tiger to be with. You might want to create a golden retriever who's a fun dog to be around, or a German shepherd who's well behaved, well trained, and high energy and smart dog. So, I would say for next gen parents, before you become a parent, think about these topics a little bit. Think about who you are, what sort of life you have lived. Are you happy with it? If you had to change something, how would you change it? Where would you change in your early life? And give it a thought, and then bring kids to this world and provide them that consistent training, a consistent environment or ambiance of life. If you want, because you couldn't go to Harvard, you wanted to go to Harvard, so you want to make sure your kid goes to Harvard, then you're going to be a tiger mom, tiger dad. I never had those issues. It was more fun. I wanted to have great friends, play golf, have a lot of, just have fun at life, because life goes by so fast that if you're not having fun, no matter how much money you have, what accomplishments you have, you're going to be a miserable son of a gun that you will not be much fun to have a drink with at the end of the day or play a round of golf with, So who you want to be, what sort of a person you are, what sort of person you want to be. And your kids are nothing else but an extension of you. So make sure that you are, your next version, which is your kids, are a better version of you. And give it a thought, what would make them a better person, what sort of software programming. So, give it a great thought in terms of what sort of software programming would you like to do in your next version, which is your kids, which are an extension of you, and your partner. My philosophy has been to, go easy, let them figure out life themselves, give them broad models, broad structures. Don't be micro, be a macro thinker. Give them the big picture of life, because the details of life they're going to paint themselves, and universe. And if you're in a Hindu, I believe in karmic theory. They're going to relive their karma, good as well as bad. That's why they have taken birth. What you want to do is give them as many tools as possible to enjoy life, because life is going to test them like it has tested us all in some form or shape. And you want to create human beings in the next gen who are capable of living a good life, who are capable of finding joy in misery, who are capable of enjoying this journey, which is going to be full of trials and tribulations, and still still have a very balanced head, still can be a great partner, great friend, great son, and enjoy the journey of life. What is accomplishment? Going to Harvard is an accomplishment, or becoming Michael Jordan is an accomplishment, or becoming just be who you are is an accomplishment. To me, any person who can be true to himself, honest to himself, create an ambience where everybody around him is enjoying his company, that's a big accomplishment. Money, name, fame, they're just an instrument to accomplish that. So having these sort of very balanced macro ideas about human life, society, dharma, balance, vivek, wisdom, how do you take these very supremely refined macro fundamentals of life and inculcate in kids who don't even know which hand to use to do whatever? That's an art and science of parenting. And if you don't parent your kid with that sort of a macro and broad and deep view of the universe, the existence, the dharma, the philosophy, the relationships, you're going to find very difficult to have a philosophy of parenting first. There are a lot of parents I've seen who just wing it by the seat of the pant, and they end up creating a hodgepodge of a product or a human being. All of us see those people around us, right? Day in, day out. I'm a very judgmental person. I'm sure you are. Everybody is judgmental at certain ways. And you see the people and you know who you are dealing with. So parenting is a very conscious effort, but first you have to be conscious of yourself. You have to be intellectually capable. You have to be spiritually deep. And you have to have a very good foundation of what life and humanity and emotions and relationships and everything else is. So like anything else, I would say first pay attention to yourself. See what you're trying to get out of this day-to-day existence, day-to-day life. Always know it's limited. It's going to go by 75, 80, 85. Even if I give you 100 years, it's still limited. What you want to get out of this journey, what you are in here for, what is life for, what have you taken birth for, what is important to you, what is meaningful, and it'll constantly change. Your bucket list of life will change, your definition of life will change. What you assume about life, what you presume about life, what you want to get out of life, it will change. So life is dynamic, life is constant change, life is a struggle, life is a joy, life is a misery, life is everything, life is nothing. So with that sort of intrinsic, deep, broad, macro philosophy, you're going to raise some kids, you're going to raise some dogs. I tell people I can tell a lot about a person by spending some time with their dog, and I can tell a lot about a dog by spending some time with the owner. And same is going to be true with your kids. People can tell a lot about you by spending time with your kids, and people can tell a lot about your kids by spending time with you. So life is an extension, it's a continuum. There are no sort of certain blocks that you are cut away from your environment. No, you are a reflection of your environment. You are a reflection of your heritage. You're a reflection of your lineage, and your kids are going to be a reflection of your lineage. Now but it's important to become aware of these dynamics. It's important to become aware of life and universe and existence. To me, that's when it becomes fun. That's when you don't take hurts to your heart, and you don't let glory over your head. You just play in this world as it's a leela. It's just a play. Nothing is real. It's a simulation. So enjoy life. I just wanted to share some of these thoughts on parenting. Hope you get it. Hope my kids watch it. They become better parents than me, and they give even more freedom to their kids to explore life and run this marathon of life with a lot more joy and spring in their steps. Have fun.